Suffering begins when you confuse the voice in your head with who you are. This powerful statement by Eckhart Tolle invites us on a fascinating journey through the labyrinth of the human mind. Today, we'll dive deep into the teachings of this contemporary master, unraveling the code to break free from the chains of the ego and escape the mental matrix that imprisons us. Brace yourself for a transformative exploration that will challenge your perceptions, expand your consciousness, and perhaps completely change the way you see the world and yourself. Throughout this video, we'll discover how Tolle offers us powerful tools to transcend the ego, live in the present, and achieve lasting inner peace. But before we delve deeper, let me pose an intriguing question. Have you ever wondered why, even when you have everything you've ever wanted, you still feel unsatisfied? The answer might surprise you, and it lies at the heart of Tolle's teachings. Keep this question in mind as we move forward. Our journey will take us through 6 fundamental aspects of Tolle's thought: the illusion of the ego, the power of now, the art of being present, the transcendence of suffering, the awakening of consciousness, and personal and collective transformation. At each stage, we'll uncover profound insights that have the potential to revolutionize our existence. Let's begin our exploration with one of Tolle's most revolutionary ideas: the illusion of the ego. The ego is not who you really are. The ego is your self-image. It's your social mask. It's the role you're playing. Your physical body and your name are part of that role. All these are used to keep the separate ego identity intact and make it stand out as something separate from the whole. This passage from The Power of Now confronts us with a disconcerting truth. Much of what we consider to be our identity is, in fact, a mental construct. The ego, according to Tolle, is a fictional entity created by the mind, a collection of thoughts, memories, and conditioned patterns that we believe define who we are. But why is this so important? Because the ego is the source of much of our suffering. It keeps us trapped in the past, anxious about the future, and prevents us from experiencing the fullness of the present moment. The ego is the incessant narrator in our heads, the relentless critic, the insatiable seeker of approval and recognition. Tolle challenges us to question this fabricated identity. He invites us to observe our thoughts and emotions with compassionate detachment, recognizing that we are not these thoughts but the consciousness that perceives them. Most human suffering is unnecessary. It is self-created as long as the unobserved mind runs your life. This provocative statement leads us to consider how the ego perpetuates our suffering. The ego is constantly seeking completeness in the future, creating a chronic sense of dissatisfaction with the present. It keeps us in a state of perpetual desire or aversion, always wanting things to be different from what they are. Tolle explains, the ego identifies with having. It believes you are what you have. But as all things and conditions are impermanent, living for having is living in fear. This constant fear of loss or not having enough is one of the main sources of anxiety and stress in our lives. Moreover, the ego thrives on comparison and judgment. It's always measuring its worth against others, creating a sense of separation and isolation. The ego loves to make others wrong in order to be right. This strengthens the sense of separation on which the ego depends, Tolle states. But how can we begin to free ourselves from this illusion of the ego? Tolle suggests that the first step is simply becoming aware of its presence and operation in our lives. He encourages us to observe our thought patterns, our emotional reactions, our judgments and comparisons, without identifying with them. Start listening to the voice in your head as often as you can. Pay particular attention to any repetitive thought patterns, those old gramophone records that have been playing in your head, perhaps for many years. This practice of self-observation is the beginning of what Tolle calls the awakening of consciousness. As we become more aware of the mechanisms of the ego, we begin to disidentify from them. We start to realize that there's a deeper dimension to our existence beyond the ego. You are not your mind. You are the awareness behind the mind. This realization is the first step towards freedom from the ego. It's the beginning of a journey of self-discovery that takes us beyond the limitations of our conditioned identity towards a more authentic and full experience of who we really are. But this journey isn't easy. The ego is resistant and persistent. It will fight to maintain its control over our consciousness. That's why Tolle emphasizes the importance of constant vigilance and continuous practice. The ego will try to maintain its existence by pretending to be the watcher of the mind. In other words, the ego is now observing itself. But how can you know that you are not the ego pretending to be the observer? There is a simple way. Look at the observer. Feel your own presence. Is there any ego there? This practice of turning attention to the observer, to consciousness itself, is a powerful tool for transcending the ego. It's an invitation to experience our true nature beyond the mental constructs of the ego. As we practice this self-observation and disidentify from the ego, we begin to experience moments of clarity and peace that don't depend on external circumstances. We begin to glimpse our true nature as pure, unlimited, and free consciousness. However, the dissolution of the ego is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It's a lifelong journey of awakening and rediscovery. And it's a journey that inevitably leads us to the present moment, to the power of now. Now that we've explored the illusion of the ego, let's dive into the second fundamental aspect of Tolle's teachings, the power of now. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. The concept of now is central to Tolle's philosophy. He argues that the only moment that truly exists is the present. The past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, and our tendency to live mentally in these non-existent times is one of the main causes of anxiety, depression, and dissatisfaction. Tolle explains, time isn't precious at all because it is an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time but the one point that is out of time, the now. That is precious indeed. The more you are focused on time, past and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is. But why is the now so powerful? Tolle argues that it's in the present that all life happens, that all power and fullness reside. It's only in the now that we can access our true nature beyond the ego. Life is now. There was never a time when your life was not now, nor will there ever be. This statement invites us to consider how many times we lose the present moment in favor of worries about the future or ruminations about the past. How often are we physically present but mentally absent, lost in thoughts about what was or what could be? Tolle argues that this disconnection from the present is the root of much of our suffering. When we're constantly projecting ourselves into the future or reliving the past, we lose touch with the only reality that exists, the now. All negativity is caused by an accumulation of psychological time and denial of the present. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear, are caused by too much future and not enough presence. But how can we embrace the present when our mind is constantly wandering? Tolle offers several powerful techniques. One is conscious observation. Watch your thoughts. Be the silent watcher of your mind. You'll discover there's a deeper dimension of consciousness behind the flow of thoughts. Another technique is sensory attention. Tolle encourages us to pay more attention to the little things, the sound of rain, the wind in the trees, the sun on your skin. This brings us back to the present. Conscious breathing is another powerful tool. Feel the air flowing in and out of your body. Feel your inner energy field. This anchors you in the now. Tolle also emphasizes the importance of accepting what is. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. These mindfulness practices are powerful tools for breaking the dominion of the ego and reconnecting with the present moment. As we observe our thoughts without judgment, as we tune into our sensory experiences, as we focus on our breath, we begin to realize that we are not our thoughts but the consciousness that witnesses them. Tolle emphasizes that living in the now doesn't mean completely ignoring the past or future. Instead, it means using the past and future functionally, without allowing them to dominate our consciousness. The past cannot survive in your presence. It can only survive in your absence. This statement reminds us that the past only has power over us when we're not fully present. When we're rooted in the now, the past loses its hold on our consciousness. Similarly, Tolle encourages us to approach the future from a state of presence. The future comes as the now. Therefore, the only place where you can plan the future is in the now. This doesn't mean we shouldn't plan or prepare for the future. Instead, it means doing so from a state of presence and clarity, rather than anxiety and worry. The power of now isn't just a tool for inner peace, but also for effective action in the world. Tolle argues that when we're fully present, our actions become more powerful and aligned with our true purpose. When you make the present moment the focal point of your life, your ability to enjoy what you do, and with it the quality of your life, increases dramatically. Moreover, you become more effective. This effectiveness comes from the clarity and focus that presence brings. When we're not distracted by thoughts about the past or future, we can give our full attention and energy to what we're doing in the moment. Moreover, living in the now allows us to access a state of flow, where action becomes effortless and joyful. Tolle describes, "When you are fully present, you are in a state of flow. In this state, you feel joy in what you do. You become one with what you're doing." This state of flow and oneness with the present is what Tolle calls the power of now. It's a state of heightened consciousness where we experience a sense of fullness and connection with life. As we practice living in the now, we begin to experience moments of clarity and peace that transcend the concerns of the ego. We begin to glimpse our true nature as pure, unlimited, and free consciousness. However, living in the now isn't a state we achieve once and maintain forever. It's an ongoing practice, a constant return to the present moment. And it's a practice that inevitably leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Now that we've explored the power of now, let's delve into the third fundamental aspect of Tolle's teachings, the art of being present. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. This will miraculously transform your whole life. This passage from The Power of Now introduces us to a revolutionary concept, radical acceptance of the present. Tolle argues that resisting what is, wishing things were different, is the root of much of our suffering. Instead, he invites us to fully embrace the present moment, no matter how it presents itself. But don't confuse acceptance with passivity. Tolle emphasizes that true acceptance puts us in a state of clarity and power, from which we can act more effectively and in alignment with our true purpose. Acceptance, in this context, is a lucid recognition of reality as it is, without the distorted filter of our mental and emotional projections. The quality of your consciousness at this moment is what shapes the future, which of course can only be experienced as the now. This statement reminds us that our experience of the present directly shapes our future. When we resist the present, we create tension and negativity that propagate into our future experiences. On the other hand, when we accept and align with the present, we create a space of clarity and possibility. Tolle offers several practices for cultivating presence. One is the conscious observation of our thoughts and emotions. He encourages us to observe the flow of our mind without identifying with it. Watch the thinker, he says, referring to the practice of witnessing our mental activity as a detached observer. Another powerful practice is attention to the senses. Tolle invites us to tune into the sensations of our body, the sounds around us, the textures we touch, the smells we sense. This sensory attention firmly anchors us in the present moment, drawing us away from mental wanderings. Conscious breathing is another valuable tool that Tolle emphasizes. By focusing our attention on the breath, we create a bridge between mind and body, between the inner and outer worlds. The breath, always occurring in the present, serves as an anchor for our consciousness. Feel the air flowing in and out of your body. Feel your inner energy. This anchors you in the now. Tolle also encourages us to practice acceptance of what is. This doesn't mean we have to like everything that happens, but rather recognize the reality of the moment without mental or emotional resistance. This acceptance frees us from internal struggle and allows us to respond to life more clearly and effectively. When you create a problem, you create pain. All it takes is a simple choice, a simple decision. No matter what happens, I will create no more problems and no judge the moment as good or bad. The practice of presence also involves recognizing the space between our thoughts. Tolle invites us to notice the moments of mental quietude, the intervals between thoughts. In these spaces, we can glimpse our true nature beyond the thinking mind. The gap between your thoughts is the doorway to the realm of being. As we practice being present, we begin to notice subtle changes in our life experience. Problems that once seemed oppressive begin to lose their power over us. We experience moments of peace and clarity that don't depend on external circumstances. Our perception becomes sharper, our appreciation of life deeper. Tolle describes this state of presence as a form of ordinary enlightenment. It's not a mystical state reserved for the few, but a quality of consciousness available to all of us in every moment. Enlightenment is a state of wholeness, of being at one and therefore at peace. Being at one with life in its manifested aspect, the world, as well as with your unmanifested essence, is to be enlightened. This oneness with life, this state of total presence, is what Tolle considers our true nature. It's a state that transcends the ego, that goes beyond the concerns and anxieties of the conditioned mind. However, Tolle recognizes that maintaining this state of presence is a constant challenge. The habit of living in the mind, identified with our thoughts and emotions, is deeply ingrained. That's why he emphasizes the importance of continuous practice. The key is to be in a state of permanent connectedness with your inner body, to feel it at all times. This will rapidly deepen and transform your life. This practice of continuous presence isn't just a spiritual exercise, but a way of living. It's an approach that transforms our relationship with every aspect of our lives, our work, our relationships, our daily activities. When we're truly present, each moment becomes an opportunity for awakening, for the direct experience of our true nature. Life ceases to be a series of problems to be solved or goals to be achieved, and becomes a dance of consciousness, a continuous expression of our deepest being. The art of being present is, ultimately, the art of living fully. It's the key to a life of peace, clarity, and purpose. And it's an invitation to discover, moment by moment, the truth of who we are beyond the limitations of ego and time. Now that we've explored the art of being present, let's delve into the fourth fundamental aspect of Tolle's teachings, the transcendence of suffering. Suffering has a noble purpose, the evolution of consciousness and the burning up of the ego. This provocative statement by Eckhart Tolle invites us to reconsider our relationship with suffering. Instead of seeing it as something to be avoided at all costs, Tolle encourages us to view it as a catalyst for spiritual growth and personal transformation. But how can we transcend suffering? Tolle offers a powerful perspective. Where there is pain, there is always suffering. Suffering is the layer of mental and emotional pain that you create by resisting the pain. This distinction between pain and suffering is crucial. Pain, whether physical or emotional, is often unavoidable in human life. Suffering, on the other hand, is created by our mental resistance to this pain, our insistence on denying or fighting against what is. Tolle invites us to observe our pain with compassionate awareness, without judgment or resistance. By doing this, we can begin to dissolve the layers of suffering we've accumulated over time. Pain can be the catalyst for consciousness evolution. It forces you to awaken to who you really are, beyond the identity based on form. This perspective offers us a completely new way of approaching life's challenges and difficulties. Instead of seeing pain as an enemy to be fought, we can begin to see it as a teacher, a guide to deeper awakening. Tolle argues that much of our suffering comes from our identification with the mind and its stories about the past and future. When we're fully present, accepting what is without resistance, suffering cannot persist. Suffering begins when you mentally label a situation as bad. That causes an emotional contraction. When you let it be without naming it, enormous power is suddenly available to you. This realization that we are not our thoughts, but the consciousness that perceives them, is a crucial step in transcending suffering. As we disidentify from the thinking mind, we begin to experience a peace and freedom that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Tolle also reminds us that suffering often arises from our resistance to what is. When we fight against present reality, we create internal tension and conflict that manifests as suffering. What you fight, you strengthen, and what you resist persists. This acceptance doesn't mean passive resignation, but a lucid recognition of reality as it is. From this state of acceptance, we can respond to life more effectively and in alignment. Another important aspect of transcending suffering is recognizing that most of our suffering is created by the mind. Tolle argues that the mind is constantly projecting problems into the future or ruminating about the past, creating anxiety and dissatisfaction. The mind unconsciously loves problems because they give you an identity of sorts. This is normal, and it is insane. Problem means that you are dwelling on a situation mentally, without there being a true intention or possibility of taking action now. By bringing our attention back to the present moment, we can interrupt this cycle of projection and rumination. We can begin to experience life directly, without the layer of mental interpretation and judgment. Tolle also encourages us to see suffering as an opportunity for spiritual awakening. He argues that it's often through suffering that we're forced to question our limited beliefs and identities. Suffering creates a crack in the ego shell, and it's through that crack that the light of consciousness can shine. This perspective offers us a way to find meaning even in life's most challenging experiences. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances, we can begin to see ourselves as active participants in our own spiritual evolution. Tolle also emphasizes the importance of surrender in the process of transcending suffering. But this surrender is not passive giving up, but a deep acceptance of what is. Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. By surrendering to the present moment, we open ourselves to the wisdom and power that reside beyond the ego. We discover a source of strength and clarity that doesn't depend on our external circumstances. Another crucial aspect of transcending suffering is cultivating compassion, both for ourselves and others. Tolle reminds us that we all share the experience of suffering, and that by recognizing this, we can develop a deeper understanding and a more authentic connection with others. When you recognize that suffering is universal, you develop compassion, the feeling of wanting to alleviate the suffering of others. This compassion not only connects us more deeply with others, but also helps us transcend our own suffering. By focusing on alleviating the suffering of others, we often find that our own suffering diminishes. Finally, Tolle reminds us that transcending suffering is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It's a journey of awakening that occurs moment by moment as we learn to be more present, more aware, and more aligned with our true nature. Enlightenment is not a state to be achieved in the future. Enlightenment is being aligned with what is. In this perspective, each moment becomes an opportunity for awakening, for transcending suffering, and for realizing our true nature beyond ego and time. Now that we've explored the transcendence of suffering, let's delve into the fifth fundamental aspect of Tolle's teachings, the awakening of consciousness. You are not your mind, you are the awareness behind the mind. This simple yet profound statement lies at the heart of Eckhart Tolle's philosophy. He invites us to recognize that our true essence is not the incessant flow of thoughts and emotions we experience, but the silent, unchanging consciousness that witnesses it all. The awakening of consciousness, according to Tolle, is the recognition of this fundamental truth. It's an awakening to our true nature beyond the limitations of ego and conditioned mind. Awakening is a shift in consciousness in which thinking and awareness separate. This shift in consciousness is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of disidentification from the mind and realignment with our deeper essence. It's a journey of self-discovery that has the potential to radically transform our life experience. Tolle argues that most people live in a state of unconsciousness, identified with their thoughts, emotions, and conditioning. In this state, we're like actors in a dream, automatically reacting to life stimuli without true awareness or freedom. Most people are so completely identified with the voice in their head, the incessant stream of involuntary and compulsive thinking, and the emotions that accompany it, that we could describe them as being possessed by their mind. The awakening of consciousness is the process of freeing ourselves from this identification with the mind. It's the recognition that we are more than our thoughts, more than our emotions, more than our stories about who we are. But how can we awaken to this deeper consciousness? Tolle offers several powerful practices. Feel the inner body. Immediately the mind falls silent. Feel the aliveness within you. Feel it in your hands, your feet, your abdomen, your chest. Feel the life that you are, the life that animates the body. This practice of feeling the inner body is a powerful tool for anchoring us in the present and connecting us with our deeper essence. As we become more aware of this vital energy within us, we begin to identify less with the dramas of the mind and more with the peace and fullness of our true nature. Another crucial practice is the observation of thoughts. Tolle encourages us to observe the flow of our thoughts without identifying with them. As we do this, we begin to realize that there's a dimension of consciousness beyond thought. Start listening to the voice in your head as often as you can. Pay particular attention to any repetitive thought patterns, those old gramophone records that have been playing in your head perhaps for many years. This practice of self-observation helps us create a space between our consciousness and our thoughts. We begin to realize that we are not our thoughts, but the consciousness that perceives them. Tolle also emphasizes the importance of being present in the moment. He argues that it's only in the present that we can access our true nature beyond the ego. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. This presence in the moment frees us from the concerns of the past and future, allowing us to experience life directly, without the layer of mental interpretation and judgment. The awakening of consciousness also involves recognizing our interconnection with all life. Tolle reminds us that, in our deepest essence, we are one with the universe. You are not separate from the whole. You are one with the whole, just as a wave is not separate from the ocean. A sunbeam is not separate from the sun. The feeling of separation is an illusion of the dimensional mind. This recognition of our fundamental unity with all life can lead to a profound transformation in our way of seeing and interacting with the world. Tolle also emphasizes that the awakening of consciousness is not a final state to be achieved, but an ongoing process of deepening and expanding our awareness. Awakening is a process. There are little awakenings along the way. Each moment of presence, each instant of awareness is a small awakening. As we cultivate these moments, they become more frequent and deeper, leading to a gradual transformation of our consciousness. The awakening of consciousness also involves recognizing our essential nature beyond all forms and identities. Tolle invites us to recognize the I am, the pure presence of consciousness that is our true nature. When you say I am, that's the deepest truth you can utter. You're expressing something far more fundamental than when you say I am this or I am that. This recognition of our essential nature as pure consciousness is at the core of spiritual awakening. It's the realization that, in our deepest essence, we are being itself, the very consciousness that permeates the entire universe. As we awaken to this deeper consciousness, we begin to experience a radical shift in our perception of reality. The world doesn't change, but our experience of it is completely transformed. When you live in complete acceptance of what is, which is the only sane way to live, there is no good or bad in your life anymore. There is only a higher good, which includes the bad. This awakening to our true nature is Tolle's final invitation, an invitation to live in alignment with life, in harmony with the present, and in recognition of our fundamental oneness with all that is. The awakening of consciousness is not a single event, but an ongoing journey of self-discovery and self-realization. It's a process of peeling away layers of conditioning and illusion to reveal the truth of who we really are. Consciousness is the power that is concealed within the present moment. That's why we can also call it presence. As we become more conscious, we begin to perceive life with a new clarity and depth. Things that once disturbed us lose their power over us. We experience a peace and joy that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Tolle reminds us that the awakening of consciousness is not something we do, but something we allow to happen. It's a process of surrender, of letting go of control, and allowing life to flow through us. You don't have to wait to become enlightened. The next time you create a problem, watch how you create it. Watch the thought process behind it. This conscious observation is the key to awakening. As we become witnesses to our own mental and emotional patterns, we begin to free ourselves from them. We begin to live from a place of presence and awareness rather than automatic reaction. The awakening of consciousness also involves a shift in our relationship with time. Tolle argues that our obsession with past and future is one of the main causes of suffering. Time isn't precious at all, because it is an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time, but the one point that is out of time, the now. That is precious indeed. By aligning ourselves with the present, we free ourselves from the tyranny of psychological time. We discover a dimension of eternity in the present moment, a fullness that is always available, but that we often miss in our rush to get somewhere in the future. The awakening of consciousness also involves a deep acceptance of life as it is. Tolle encourages us to say yes to the present moment, no matter how it presents itself. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. This will miraculously transform your whole life. This acceptance is not passivity or resignation, but a deep alignment with the reality of the moment. It's from this state of acceptance that we can act with clarity and power, responding to life in a creative and effective way. The awakening of consciousness also involves a shift in our relationship with others. As we become more conscious, we begin to see beyond the masks and roles that people play. We begin to recognize the common essence we share with all beings. Love is a state of being. Your love is not outside, it is deep within you. You can never lose it, and it cannot leave you. This unconditional love arises naturally as we awaken to our true nature. It's not something we do, but something we are. Finally, Tolle reminds us that the awakening of consciousness is not a distant goal, but a reality that is always available in the present moment. You are already that which you seek. This realization is the heart of awakening. There is nothing to achieve, nothing to become. There is only the recognition of what we already are, have always been, and will always be. Pure consciousness, being, presence that is the essence of all life. The awakening of consciousness is Tolle's final invitation, an invitation to live in alignment with our true nature, in harmony with the flow of life, and in recognition of our fundamental oneness with all that is. It's an invitation to discover the peace, joy, and fullness that are our birthright, always available in the eternal now. Now that we've explored the awakening of consciousness, let's delve into the sixth and final fundamental aspect of Tolle's teachings: personal and collective transformation. A new earth arises as more and more people discover that their main purpose in life is to bring the light of consciousness into this world. Eckhart Tolle sees individual awakening not just as a path to personal peace and fulfillment, but as a catalyst for global transformation. He argues that as more people awaken to their true nature, a shift in collective consciousness becomes possible. What is arising now is not a new belief system, a new religion, a new spiritual ideology, or a new mythology. We are coming to the end not only of mythologies but also of ideologies and belief systems. What is emerging now is something more radical, something unprecedented in the history of humankind, a shift in the very consciousness of humanity. This vision of a new earth is not a distant utopia, but a possibility that unfolds here and now through each individual who awakens to their true nature. Tolle argues that this collective transformation is not only possible but necessary for the survival and evolution of humanity. Humanity is now faced with a stark choice: evolve or die. If the structures of the human mind remain unchanged, we will always end up recreating the same world, the same evils, the same dysfunction. But how can we contribute to this collective transformation? Tolle offers a simple yet profound answer. To be fruitful and to create positive change in the world, your actions must be born out of awareness rather than reaction to fear or desire. Be alert and present, and see how you can be an instrument of change. This call to conscious action brings us back to the present moment, where all the power of transformation resides. Each conscious choice we make, each moment of presence we cultivate, is a contribution to this collective change. Tolle emphasizes that personal and collective transformation are intrinsically linked. As we awaken individually, we contribute to the awakening of collective consciousness. As the new consciousness emerges, some people will feel called upon to form groups that reflect the enlightened consciousness. These groups will be collective vehicles for the intensification and stabilization of the new consciousness. This creative expression of awakened consciousness is a powerful way to contribute to collective transformation. Each act of conscious creation, each expression of our true nature, has the potential to awaken others to their own deeper essence. Tolle also reminds us that collective transformation is not something that happens out there, but something that occurs through us in our everyday lives. You cannot become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. This perspective invites us to see each interaction, each relationship, as an opportunity to manifest our true nature and contribute to collective transformation. Personal and collective transformation also involves a fundamental shift in our relationship with the natural world. Tolle argues that as we awaken to our true nature, we recognize our fundamental unity with all life. Nature is an expression of who you are. When you are at peace with yourself, you are at peace with the world. This recognition of our interconnection with nature can lead to a profound change in our way of living and interacting with the world around us. Tolle also emphasizes the importance of cultivating conscious relationships as part of personal and collective transformation. He argues that our relationships are a powerful mirror of our state of consciousness. Relationships do not cause pain and unhappiness. They bring out the pain and unhappiness that is already in you. By approaching our relationships with presence and awareness, we can transform them into opportunities for mutual growth and awakening. Personal and collective transformation also involves a shift in our relationship with work and life purpose. Tolle invites us to see our work not just as a means of earning money, but as an expression of our awakened consciousness. Enjoyment of what you are doing, combined with a goal or vision that you work toward, becomes enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the power that moves the world. This perspective invites us to align our external actions with our inner reality, creating a life that is an authentic expression of our true nature. Finally, Tolle reminds us that personal and collective transformation is not a final destination, but an ongoing process of awakening and evolution. The evolution of consciousness is not a process that will be completed in the future. Life is always now. Your spiritual journey and your life are one and the same thing. This perspective invites us to see each moment as an opportunity for awakening, each experience as an invitation to deeper consciousness. As we open ourselves to this possibility of ongoing transformation, we begin to live in a way that not only enriches our own lives, but contributes to the awakening of consciousness across the planet. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. With these words, Tolle reminds us of our true importance and purpose, not as separate egos striving for personal fulfillment, but as unique expressions of universal consciousness, each of us playing a crucial role in the evolution of consciousness on our planet. This vision of personal and collective transformation is Tolle's final invitation, an invitation to live in a way that not only liberates us individually, but contributes to the liberation of all humanity. It's a call to be agents of change, beacons of consciousness in a world that is awakening to its true nature. As we come to the end of this journey through Eckhart Tolle's teachings, we return to the question we asked at the beginning. Why, even when we have everything we've ever wanted, can we still feel unsatisfied? The answer, as we've discovered, lies in our identification with the ego and our disconnection from the present moment. The good news is that the solution is also within our reach. Through the practice of presence, the conscious observation of our thoughts and emotions, and alignment with our true nature, we can begin to dissolve the illusions of the ego and experience the peace and fullness that are our birthright. Remember, you are consciousness disguised as a person. This realization has the power to transform not only your life, but the world around you. So what will you do with this knowledge? How will you apply these teachings in your daily life? Tolle's invitation is clear. Start now. In this moment, take a deep breath, feel the life within you, and allow yourself to be fully present. And as you contemplate these ideas, consider, what changes could you make today to live more aligned with your true essence? How could you bring more consciousness to your interactions, your decisions, your way of being in the world? Remember, each moment of presence is an opportunity for awakening. Each conscious breath is a step towards freedom from the ego. And each act of consciousness is a contribution to the collective transformation that Tolle envisions. Are you ready to take the next step on this journey of self-discovery and transformation? The power is in your hands, or rather, in the consciousness that you are. Thank you for embarking on this deep exploration of Eckhart Tolle's teachings. May these ideas continue to resonate within you, inspiring a life of greater presence, peace, and purpose. Until next time, where we'll continue our journey of growth and discovery.